the Wholesome Podcast. I'm Wholesome B, Mitch. Trey is not in the building today. Short Trey is in Minneapolis while I'm in Dallas. And I'm here with my good friend Bree. She's a mental health professional down here in Dallas. And I really wanted to get her insight on relationships and mental health and how they correlate, how they relate. And what are some things, like the biggest thing I want to know is like, so people a lot of times say that they weren't crazy before a relationship. And I think that's very false. Like, you know, they have crazy attributes. They do stuff that's very wild or very insane. They say this relationship brought these things on. What are your thoughts on when people say stuff like that?
So a lot of times people have trouble with accountability. And by the way, thank you for the introduction. You know, but I see you like to jump right in, so that's cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of times people have trouble with accountability and just self-awareness. And a lot of people lack self-awareness. So when you come to a relationship and you haven't really taken the time to have a relationship with yourself because you are so invested in people around you, whether that's family, friends, relationships, then you may not be aware of issues that you already had prior to the relationship, and the relationship can bring them out. Relationships tend to bring out the best and the worst that is already within you.
So you're saying these people probably already been crazy, they just didn't know.
Yes.
And the relationship is just embracing their crazy.
Yes.
So what level of crazy have you dealt with in your dating life?
So honestly, I have been very fortunate. I am a mental health professional, but I have spent several years being single, literally by choice, because I do have options of people who presented relationships.
That's what every girl says, though. Everybody has options, though.
I said literally by choice.
But everybody has options. Like, that's cool.
Right. So it's truly by choice if I've been offered relationships or if I've turned down relationships because I knew that they were not right.
My point is, it goes without being said because everybody has an option. Everybody chooses to be single.
Okay, fine. Maybe that is stating the obvious.
Yes, very much so.
But yeah, I've had relationships that have had like somewhat of crazy elements to them, but nothing too like out of character for me. Maybe things to where I would lash out verbally.
So where do you rate your crazy then? 1 to 10?
On 1 to 10, so 10.
Or
let's say what 10 is.
10 is killing somebody. Murder is 10.
Murder is 10. Okay.
9 is serious plans to murder. 8 is thoughts of murder. So let me just clarify.
8 can be physical harm as well. Physical aggression. I feel like that goes with 8 too. Or do you think that's 7? 7. That's 7. Okay, 7 is physical aggression. Wow, we've broken down the crazy skill.
Yeah.
So I've never been physically aggressive with someone. And I've never...
Have you thought about being physically aggressive?
No, I've never thought about...
You've never thought of like I'm finna slap the hell out of this dude.
Well, actually...
So you about a 6.
I've thought about it, but I had a lot of self-control.
Right, so you about a 6. You got the
Would
thoughts.
Would that be 6?
Because 7 is the action. 6 is the thought. It has to be.
So 6.
So you're level 6 crazy.
I guess you could say that.
So far, I mean, but you might get in a relationship and get more self-aware and really
I'm
be
more
a 9.
self-aware than I was before. So I mean, if I was at a 6 before because I thought of slapping the fuck out of somebody, then now I would say, I mean, I don't know what I meant now because right now I'm not in a committed relationship.
Right.
But my level of self-awareness, I feel like I'm more aware of situations that trigger me. I know, what situations can bring out maybe the worst aspects of myself. So I try my best to not make those situations worse. So, yeah.
And then another thing that goes on with like dating aspect and relationship both is like anxiety. A lot of times people get real anxious when somebody maybe hasn't texted them back or they haven't called them. They get real anxious. They'll hit them up 10 million times like, no, what happened? Where you at? Da-da-da-da-da. how is that? Like, do you deal with that? Like, have you ever dealt with that personally?
Yeah, I've dealt with that personally, and I feel that a lot of women have, but it's not more about the anxiety, it's about how we respond to the anxiety, because you have, when you think of someone's mental health, we all have attachment styles. So someone could be securely or insecurely attached in a relationship, and a lot of that
Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
A lot of that can come from the way you were raised. And that's why it's good to kind of know a person's background and the way they were raised and something about their family history, their family ties, you know, how they're connected to their family, the relationships they've had with their parents, because all of those are going to play out some way in your relationship. So if I had an insecure attachment to one of my birth parents, that can definitely have an impact on my relationships unless I've taken the time to heal and work on those things. And healing takes time, and there's no timeline on healing. So you may not be completely healed, or you may not ever be completely healed. And it's not about being 100% healed, but it's about being to the point where you feel like you can be secure with yourself.
Right.
You know, secure enough to where even if you're having some of that anxiety or some of those insecurities, insecure attachment, you know, anxiety, like all of those things go together. But when those come up and those manifest for you, it's like, okay, now how do I respond? Like, then you have to reframe those thoughts and be like, okay, like, let me just relax. This person is, you know, gonna do their own thing, but, you know.
Right, so you've been single for X amount of time. How does all this play into your single life?
How does all what play into my single life?
In terms of dating people with possibly heavy anxiety, or, you know, maybe some the attachment stuff you just was talking about. I mean, when you're dating somebody that might be dealing with these things, how's that been going with your dating life?
Well,
because you don't know what somebody's dealing with until you start dealing with them.
Yeah, well, it does play out in my dating life somehow, but because I'm so, like I said, self-aware, and not just because I'm a mental health professional, but because I've taken a lot of time on personal development, whether that be reading articles, reading books, you know, or following people who I feel like help me to tap into the highest version of myself. So when it comes to dating and being single, I feel like you have to use your discretion, because you're going to come across different characters. Like, I have come across some real crazy characters. Like, the craziest situation I had when I was dating was, I currently live in Dallas, but I was living in Houston at the time, and I wasn't there long. And I tried this black dating app out.
What was it? Black People Meet?
I think it was Black People Meet, if I'm not mistaken. Wow, this was, I was like more in like my early 20s at the time. So I was a little bit more like curious to try things out. You know, I was a little bit more risky than I am now as a 30-year-old going on 31 in a month. And so, I met this guy on Black People Meet, and he was like, okay, so he claimed he was a teacher. I don't know if he was, and a coach. But long story short, we met up. I met up with him at P.F. Chang's. We ate at P.F. Chang's. And then after that, he wanted to go dance. Like, he liked line dancing or whatever, because he was from Chicago. Okay. So I left my car at P.F. Chang's, which was a big mistake, because I literally knew nothing about him. I don't even know if he was really who he said he was.
Right, so you ran off with this stranger.
Rode in his car. Now I'm vulnerable, and I could be subjected to anything. Right. We stop at a happy hour first to get a few drinks. You know, I order a couple drinks, and at this time I wasn't as self-aware, so I ignored my intuition.
So you felt something off.
I felt something off when we were getting drinks, but I was like, you know what? Let me just coast through and get through the night. Right. You know how you're just like, you know, I'm going to just push through. Let me not overthink. Right. Let me just make the most of it. Have fun. Right. I'm not really feeling it, though.
Right, for sure.
Just wasn't feeling him. His energy was off, and we were drinking. He got up a couple times. Went to the restroom, went outside, forgot something in his car. Like, it was odd. And I had like 2 drinks, and I know myself, so it wasn't too heavy to where I should have been drunk sick, but tipsy, yes. But one of the drinks I had tasted kind of odd. And again, I ignore my intuition because I'm just like, they probably are just using some cheap liquor or something.
Right. Yeah, facts.
So, you just kind of...
You just brush it off like...
Yeah, or you attribute it to something else when not really thinking like, this person slipped something in my drink.
Right, yeah, that's a fact.
So we left there, and I was in a dangerous situation at that point because he drove to a motel on the side of a highway. And... he pulled up and he was like, and I'm like, what are you doing? We're supposed to be going dance. He was like, well, we're not far. It's only 9. It really doesn't like start getting good until about 10 o'clock. And he was like, I was thinking I could just show you some moves and we could just practice. I'm like, okay, I know I'm young, but he's thinking I'm just naive and I'm just the airhead. And I'm already feeling kind of funny from the drink. So I'm like, I'm not going to that motel. He was like, no. He was like, we're not staying. I'm gonna just get a room real quick. It's cheap, and that way we can practice. I can show you, how to do some of the dances, and then we can go up there. And I'm like, no. So he gets out the car. He goes up to like the window thing, and I call my friend at this moment. And I'm like, hey, because she knew that's one thing I was kind of smart. Like, I didn't go and no one knew where I was. Like, my friend knew I was meeting him.
Right.
So in some ways I was being too risky, but in some ways I was kind of protecting myself.
Right. I think that's important for girls to let somebody know.
Let somebody know. So,
send your location.
Long story short, I got out the car and it was hardly anything over there around me. So I walked to another motel to get help from them. And my friend came to pick me up from there. Wow. He was calling my phone back to back. Where'd you go?
Wow.
I just wanted to show you how to do the dances. Like, he's still sticking with this story.
Right.
And I'm just like, and so my friend came to pick me up. I was crying. She took me home. I didn't go back to get my car till the next day because I wasn't feeling well. So she took me home, but I just thought maybe I was just drunk. But I shouldn't have been that drunk, like I said, from 2 drinks. And so I get home, things are spinning, everything is spinning. I'm on the floor like crawling. And I crawl to the bathroom and I throw up like several times.
Man.
Fortunately, I was okay. I wasn't sick because that could have really messed me up, whatever it was, because it was something in that drink. So yes, I've been in some very crazy dating situations. So that was the craziest. That was the craziest.
Right.
But outside of that, it hasn't really been anything too crazy. But like if somebody is aggressive or they like try to be disrespectful or demeaning because I don't do something that they want me to do or then that's a red flag to me. So now at this point, my cutoff period is really short.
Though? I mean, what's an example of that, like early on? Like, what can somebody say early on? They just now.
So early on, if they do something, your cutoff period should be really like my cutoff period is like a week, but most guys don't get past 2 weeks with me.
Right after a week, if they ain't coming with what you want, then it's deuces.
Yeah, because I don't have time to do that and invest in people where I'm not getting a return. But so some of the things they might do would be like, I don't know, I can't think of anything right now, but just maybe like you text them and like y'all are texting and then they're like, well, why can't I come see you or something? And then you're like, well, we just met and I really don't, we should go out and do something. They're like, and then they kind of get aggressive, or they might curse, or they might say something crazy like, well, I don't know what the fuck is da-da-da-da-da. I'm just trying to, and it's like they have an attitude.
Right.
And they kind of show you some aggression because you're not doing things the way you want them to do it. And then it's like, okay, now I feel like you have ulterior motives and you don't truly respect me and value me as a person.
Wow,
so I'm going to go my separate way and we can, So, yeah.
So, that easy, that quick, boom, you cut somebody
off. And it's not just those kind of things, but it's just, now that I've been single, my cutoff period is usually less than 2 weeks. If you even get to 2 weeks with me, I'm going to be surprised.
But so, I mean, do you plan on being single forever?
No.
So, why such a short leash?
Because I want to be selective. So I don't want to, some of these people, they're showing me red flags. So the people who I talk to longer are usually people who I see relationship potential with. If I'm not seeing relationship potential with you, or if you're showing me red flags in the beginning, I'm very aware of what the red flags are, then I'm going to cut you off. Like, it's no point to continue.
Right.
And, like, set myself up for something. Like, usually the reasons we stop talking to people, we already had the red flags in the beginning and we ignored them.
True. That's very true.
Yeah.
Another side note, too. You was talking about intuition. Women's intuition is not a real thing. Just FYI. I just got to throw that out there.
Okay. Who says it's not a real thing?
Me. I'm saying it's not a real thing.
You say it's not a real thing.
No.
Why do you not think it's a real thing?
Because it isn't.
So you don't think...
Everybody gets a gut feeling about something, and it's usually based off of maybe things that they've seen or something historical that has happened or something that they've seen. That's all it is.
So...
It's like a premonition or something.
But... It's not just women that have intuition. Anybody can have intuition.
Right, it's just a gut feeling.
Yeah, but it's not just women's intuition. Like, sometimes we like to claim that as if we have a special gift. But
that's what I'm saying.
Women are more in tune emotionally than you guys are.
Okay, cool.
We're wired to be more emotional biologically.
Okay.
So, yeah, we are more in tune with our feelings and with the feelings of other people and how that can be signs for different things. So that is part of a quote-unquote woman's intuition, but everybody has intuition. Some people are just more tapped into theirs.
Okay, as long as we both agree women's intuition is not a real thing. It's just people have it.
Everyone has intuition. Some people are more spiritual and some people are more self-aware. There's men that have better intuition skills and are more intuitive than women.
Facts.
Why? Because they tune into it and they listen and they develop that. That's something you have to develop. If you have intuition and you ignore it, then you're not going to develop it because you are ignoring it. So it's not going to be as prominent to you. You're not going to really hear it because you're not going to see the benefits of listening to it. Like, the more I listen to my intuition, the more I see the benefits of listening to it.
Right. I'm just calling it observing.
You can call it what you want to call it. You can label it whatever.
I think observing is more
You can label it whatever.
It's more proper of a term.
Okay.
So
Whatever.
People be observing stuff.
Whatever you prefer. That's what you like.
Or they peep some. People always like to say they peep this, they peep that. It's not intuition. That's just observing and peeping.
Intuition is a spiritual gift that a person can develop.
What makes it spiritual?
Because
it's something
within you. It's something within you that you have to tap into. It's not always external. Sometimes it's not always an external thing that happens for you to know something.
But but there's certain stuff that there's split second decisions that are made within our mind that we don't even realize that are being made. So there's split second things that we see that we don't realize that we've seen consciously.
Of course there are.
So that's actually what that stems from. So it's not actually a spiritual thing.
That's part of it.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not the end all.
It's just like when you walk up to somebody, and you first shake their hand, you're subconsciously judging certain things about them.
Right.
Yeah, you might get a bad feeling.
Naturally, we judge. That's a part of our survival mechanisms. People think, oh, you shouldn't judge. Naturally, you judge as a means to protect yourself because you have to make some type of educated guess to know how to maneuver in situations.
And I think that's what that gut feeling is.
Yeah,
it's
that's part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. That's basically what it is all the way. But one thing that I like asking everybody now is when was the last time you thought somebody was the one? Like that person, like your person. This is the person you was finna marry.
The last time?
Yeah. That's the question I'm asking everybody from now on.
Why is that question important? I have a question about the question.
Why is that? It's not important, but I'm curious. Because sometimes there's people that find out that think that somebody is the one very frequently. Mm-hmm. And sometimes there's people that think it's once every 15 years. But I think with that wide range, it's just a good question to ask to find out what's the perspective from the people. I think women in general, we tend to be more hopeful and optimistic about people being the one than men in general. So maybe. I would say in general, I would say because women are more we get more emotionally invested. So Absolutely. We kind of want it to be the one. We want to kind of move forward and advance things emotionally, physically, all of it. We want to advance it to a different level beyond just friends with benefits. When was the last time you thought somebody was the one? Last time I thought someone was the one, it's been a long time.
I've had people that I'm like, maybe they could be the one, but not a person who I thought would be the one. So I would say it's been years, probably.
So you haven't had no hopefuls?
I haven't really had one person who I thought was. I've had hopefuls. Yes, I've had hopefuls.
And you could, and by the way, you could think somebody is the one based off a first meeting. Like, oh, this person's pretty cool. I might want to.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. No. I've had that happen recently, actually, with a person who I thought might be potentially the one. Like, I'm not certain on that, but I've had that happen.
Of course. You're not certain till it's certain.
Yeah, I've had that happen recently, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are constantly meeting people, and they might be just assuming it. They might not. I don't know. Yeah. I think if everybody you meet and you just automatically just say, "I have no chance with them. We have no chance ever together," that's a pretty like pessimistic way of looking at everything. If everybody you meet is like, "There's no way this is going to be."
I think it's part of being open, though. Like, you might not be spot on. You might not be right to think somebody is the one, but it's just part of being open to the possibility of them being the one. That way, you're not too guarded. You're not closing yourself off to, somebody that potentially will add value to your life.
Right. That's important.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely can't close that off. Another thing that people need to be more open about, and they're really not, it's just in my opinion, they're very closed off about it, is the fact that that black men don't cheat. This has been the Wholesome Podcast. Wholesome B, Mitch. Trey not in the building today, but he'll be back next week. We appreciate Bree down in Dallas. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
What about this black man don't cheat?
It's just a fact.